Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of Moorish America. The assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs, if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws, Act 2. All meetings are to be open and closed promptly, according to the Circle 7, in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest, because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh. On a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality in the divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slave holders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali the prophet to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a parcel of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America, and then you're entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey subhanAllah. You must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, founding father and framer of the divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America. And now that this meeting has been opened according to the Triune Acts, Acts 1, 2, and 3 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we say Islam, Islam, Islamism. The providence of Allah is ever all his works. He ruleth and directeth with infinite wisdom. He hath instituted laws for the government of the world. He hath wonderfully varied them in all beings, and each by his nature, conforming to his will. Shemo Tepu Moorish King. Peace and love.
Muted. Love and gratitude, National Assistant Grand Sheikh, for the opening of our meeting according to law. Islam, Islam, Islam. And Divine Minister Dr. Marvin F. State, Consul General, Texas Territory, rising, giving all praises to the great God Allah, the Father of the universe, and giving highest honors to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I give high honors to our Moorish American government, our Act 1, and all of our officials and citizens of the Moorish American government, and everything that is Moorish, and that's everything that the prophet brought to save us as a nation of people, so that fallen humanity may be saved from the wrath of Allah. I will be reading chapter 33 of my holy commandments, the ADEPT chamber of the dead, the mysteries of Egypt. And I will begin. The senior course of study now was open up. And Yehoshua entered and became a pupil of the Hierophant. He learned the secrets of the mystic lore of Egypt land, the mysteries of life and death, and of the world beyond the circle of the sun. When he had finished all the studies of the senior course, he went into the chamber of the dead that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead. And here he wrought. And carriers brought the body of a widow's son to be embalmed. The weeping mother followed close. Her grief was great. And Yehoshua said, Good woman, dry your eyes, myself. Good woman, dry your tears. You follow but an empty house. Your son is in it not. You weep because your son is dead. Death is not a cruel word. Your son can never die. He had a task assigned to do in garb of flesh. He came, he did his work, and then he laid the flesh aside. He did not need it anymore. He did not need it more. Beyond the human sight, he had another work to do, and he will do it well, and then pass to other tasks, and by, he will attain the crown of perfect life. And what your son has done, and what he yet must do, we all must do. Now, if you harbor grief and give your sorrows vent, they will grow greater every day. They will absorb your very life until at last you will be naught but grief, wet down with bitter tears. Instead of helping him, you grieve your son by your deep grief. He seeks your solace now as he has ever done. He is glad when you are glad. He is saddened when you grieve. Go very deep your woes and smile at grief, and lose yourself in helping others dry their tears. With duty done comes happiness and joy, and gladness cheers the hearts of those who have passed on. The weeping woman turned and went her way to find happiness and helpfulness, to bury deep her sorrows in a ministry of joy. Then other carriers came and brought the body of a mother to the chamber of the dead. And just one mourner followed, she, a girl of tender years. And as the courted neared the door, the child observed a wounded bird in sore distress. A cruel hunter's dart had pierced his breast, and she loved following the dead and went to help the living bird. With tenderness and love, she folded to her breast the wounded bird, then hurried to her place. And Yehoshua said to her, Why did you leave your dead to save a wounded bird? The maiden said, This lifeless body needs no help from me. My mother taught me this. My mother taught that grief and selfish love and hopes and fears are but the reflexes from the Lord self. That what we sense are but small waves upon the rolling billows of a life. These all will pass away. They are unreal. Tears flow from hearts of flesh. The spirit never weeps. And I am longing for the day when I can walk in the light where tears are wiped away. My mother taught that all emotions are sprays that rise from human love and hope and fears, that perfect bliss cannot be ours till we have conquered these. And in the presence of that child, did Yehoshua bow his head in reverence. He said, for days and months and years, I have sought to learn this highest truth that man can learn on earth. And here, a child, fresh out of earth, upon himself, fresh brought to earth, has told it all in one short breath. No wonder David said, oh Allah, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. Out of the mouth of babes and sucklings hast thou ordained strength. And then he laid his hand upon the maiden's head and said, hey, I'm sure the blessings of my father Allah will rest upon you, child, forever. Islam, Islam, Islam. Now, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, Consul General of Texas Territory. Today's date is August 16th, 2025. We give honors to our National Assistant Grand Sheik of North America, Dr. Shedwa Miguel Mohedi Sepsuel, for the opening of our meeting according to law. And honors to Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, Consul General of Texas, for the reading of the chapter of the week of our Holy Quran and taking registration. And at this time, Islam. We want to welcome everyone to our Moorish Perspectives class, sponsored by our Moorish American government. Our host for tonight's class is our National Assistant Grand Sheik of Moorish America, Dr. Shedwa Miguel Mohedi Sepsuel. His subject is Ayat 3. And it reads, when he had finished all his studies of his senior course, he went into the chamber of the dead, that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead. And here he was. And so, at this time, we will now call to the floor our host, our National Assistant Grand Sheik, Dr. Shedwa Miguel. Are you there, Godman?
Unmuted.
Islam, can you hear me?
I hear you well. You have the floor. Islam.
Gratitude. Islam, Moorish America, on a rise upon the seven, within the unbroken circle of justice, mercy, love, and right, and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Al-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution, and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our Holy Prophet brought to exhume us as a nation. I want to welcome you to another Moorish Perspectives, and I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Al-Mohadi Shabazz. My ancient committee and high name being the same as Dr. Shedwa Miguel Mohedi Sepsuel. And we have a grand drawing to bring forth on the Manifest Moorish Kin. We want to again welcome our family. If you just tuning in, have your paper and pen on handy. And be sure, to like, share, and subscribe if you're on social media, so that our people can get these truths. We're here to give our people the truth. We don't conceal the light, we reveal the light, because that's what Hierophants do. And it ain't strange because we in the ADEPT chamber of the dead, dealing with the mysteries of Egypt, ancient Kemet. Chapter 33, a grand drawing to be brought on the manifest. And this particular chapter is the height of the ADEPT degree, dealing with the chamber of the dead. It ain't strange. We hear a lot about the dead, and our people have heard that which has to do with the resurrection of the dead and everything else. And also for those who would like the StreamYard link that are on our panel, it is actually right there in the email. So if you want to tune in and come on the panel, all is well. We're going to actually drop the link to the public too, if they want to come in later on. Mashallah. So, hold up. Let the brother Hamid Bey in there. All right. So, yeah, basically, we got a grand drawing to bring on the manifest, Morris Ken, and actually trying to put everything in order as we were coming forth with these particular drawings. And we really segueing from our last measure that we was demonstrating, in our last class, so to speak. My presentation that I had to bring forth is complete, as where it has to do with what I want to really home in on. This is a powerful drawing that we had to bring on the manifest, and we encourage our Moorish kin to have their paper and their pen on handy. It's very important that our Moorish kin is able to receive this grand insight that we had to bring on the manifest. So we encourage our family again to have their paper and their pen on handy, and be ready for what it is that we had to present. And I'm actually getting ready to put this slide up here for our family so that they can actually get a drawing. We want to make sure that our family get grand insight, so we always put these things here. Try to give our family some background and also keep them attentive. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to bring up my little presentation, and then once I do that right there, we'll proceed on with this particular lesson and the blessing that we have tonight. And we just want our people to recall some of the language that was given to them as they came through what they know as the Bible. Some people call it basic instruction before leaving earth. We call it the Piscean records, because it is out of that particular age, that our prophet was able to step pretty much on the solid ground into this particular realm of understanding in this new era and time. And he stood upon a rock of understanding. So this is symbolic to the seven angels having 1 foot in land and 1 foot on the water, as we teach in our particular circle. So we got some grand drawings to bring forth, and trust me, it's gonna be real powerful when we get done with this special measure. So we want to encourage our family to keep it on high when it comes to dealing with the higher self, and we want to encourage our family to continue to stay within the realm of divinity. Give me 1 second, Morris Ken. 1 second. Peace and love, brother. I'm teaching right now. I call you when I get back. All right. All right. Peace and love. Okay. Islam. All right. So yeah, can you hear me, Morris Ken? On the conference call, I just want to make sure my family hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, can y'all hear me also on the those who are on our panel? Can y'all hear me as well?
Islam, we can hear you.
Can our family hear me on the YouTube? I want to make sure my audio is heard before I go forward. Anybody on the conference call that's on our panel, can y'all hear me on YouTube?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Islam. Gratitude, Grand National Secretary of the State. And yeah, we have some very powerful, like I say, powerful measures to bring forth. And I want to make sure that our family is able to get a divine insight, because all of this is really about building the temple of perfected man. You know, that's our grand drawing. I'm getting ready to share this screen right now. And I want to do this first. Why in the world did that thing do that? Okay, we'll do this here. Copy it. Get up out of there. And let's do this here. Okay, blank. All right, there we go there. All right. And put this here. And also, family, we are pivoting from our Moorish Holy Quran too when it comes to our chapter that we are dealing with a grand ayat, if we pay attention, you know, to the lesson and the blessing, so to speak. And that particular ayat that we are drawing from is coming across the bottom of the screen. And in that particular ayat, you know, this is very powerful because we have went through the 7 ADEPT degrees, and now we are going through the senior course, you know, which are beyond just the few degrees we had. And we had the measure where Yehoshua, the adept, finished his course and he went through the chamber of the dead that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead. Many of us know this as the rite of mummification, medically. But there's a grand drawing, you know, where one is actually being wrapped in a divine mantle, so to speak, in order to preserve the body from decay. Now, are we trying to preserve this physical body? No, sir, because the senior course is taking you beyond the physical body. So we want to keep that in mind as we go further into our measure. We want to make sure that our family really get what it is that we're trying to bring to them, you know, and want to make sure they have clarity, you know, of a heart and mind and understanding, so to speak, when we demonstrate as we do. You know, that's the goal, at least. You know, that's the goal at hand. Want to make sure that our people get it, you know, and if they can get it, then we know they with it, you know. So, like I say, this is a powerful drawing, and we spoke last week, you know, on going into the plane of soul, being taken up above the sun, moon, and stars around the almighty throne of Allah. You know, we gave a whole lot of symbolism in relation to dealing with building, you know, those vessels that are upon the land, and those vessels, you know, that we utilize within the water, you know, because law governs all events. Remember, land, air, and water. Law governs all events as it is above, so it is below. And when you're dealing with land and water, you're dealing with that which is below. But when you deal with air, then you're dealing with that which is celestial. So though there are vessels that we talked about, building, so to speak, when it comes to being able to sail the seas, you have to build a vessel, in order to be able to sail in it. And we utilize our tools in the workshop of the mind to build a vessel that's celestial. You see, just as we use the tools in the workshop of the mind to build on this vessel that is tied to that which is terrestrial, this body. And that body, we showed you is symbolic, to Noah's Ark. That body is symbolic, to the Great Pyramid of Giza, the halls of Luxor. All of these are plans, floor plans, so to speak, divine or celestial floor plans. Anytime you're getting ready to build something, you always come up with the plan first. And then your structure is completed based upon the plans that you have drawn up. Where the great God Allah has drawn up a divine plan, for the divine man. The great God has already had a plan. Many refer to this as the plan of the ages. What are the ages? But cycles in relation to dealing with life. Cycles through which one is able to move, the truth is able to move per se throughout the climes and the times where masterminds, they always on time, so to speak, because they come in a particular time when the people most need them. This is the significance of cycles and ages. Each and every one of us have cycles and ages as it relates to our lives. Birth, death, and rebirth. These represent cycles in our ages of unfoldment, so to speak. So this is a powerful demonstration. So like we use those tools in the workshop of the mind to build that symbolic temple of perfected man being a living pyramid. We demonstrate the same, like I said, when one is building a vessel to sail on smoother seas. That's a powerful demonstration. So not only, do we have a sovereign jurisdiction when it comes to the land and the water, but we have, a grand degree, of that sovereignty, that divine sovereignty, when we are able to demonstrate, in that celestial realm, so to speak. Like I said, law governs all events. Make no mistake about it. Law governs all events. That's divine law. So we want to make sure that we make it plain, like I said, when we speak to our people, when we bring these things forth. And we welcome all of you. We got a powerful drawing, like I said, to bring on the manifest. And we encourage you to really pay attention to what it is that's being said. Because we don't preach over here. We teach over here. You see, we're not trying to be the next reverend, we're not trying to be, the next imam. We're not trying to be, anything that has to do with making you think that we're trying to push religiosity on you. We want you to understand that we're here to give you the truth and nothing but the truth, to extract that which is in you, to draw out that which is within you. This is what we call education. You see? So if you understand it from that aspect and you're looking for some teaching, then we here. And as a teacher, a mastermind knows that the student, becomes the teacher. Just as I am a student, of learning, student of wisdom, and more wisdom is brought on the manifest when we can get here and really begin to build with our people and talk to them, so that we can get their perspectives as well. So like, I mean, it don't get no plainer than that. So we learn from what it is that we put out here. You see, that's the whole goal. And anybody that has to do with divine wisdom has knowledge of this. So the key is, some of us, we know that no matter how much we age, we also have the ability to learn. We never get too old to learn. You see, and if we do, then that's a whole nother measure right there. Then you got to be dealt with on a whole nother level. If you feel like you got it all. If you got it all, then most definitely you should have that which is a part of the divine plan, to really awaken our people, so to speak, and uplift them out of their condition. If you have it all on the wrap, so to speak, then we need some of the teaching that you got. So again, Moors, we want to welcome you again to another Moorish Perspectives. And it's a grand drawing to be here in this new era and time. So we encourage our family to stay on point and be the God that you was born to be. Because that's the aspects of the teaching that they never really taught our people about. We was taught to worship and serve a God outside of the self. But upon investigation, we found, that was a part of our problem. You see, in every teaching, in every scripture, a book of truth that you come into, they all told you that the great God pretty much speaks to man through man. I know that's what it teaches, in the Moorish Holy Quran. Not only does he speak to man through man, but he gives us the opportunity to don his garb, being spirit clothed with soul, made in the form of Allah. You see, this ain't stuff that I said. I'm just quoting, what the book said. I'm quoting what that circle 7 said. You see, what does it mean to circle the 7? What does the circle 7 represent? You see, these are questions that we have to ask ourselves. What does it mean to us anyway? Because it don't matter what it means to nobody else. It matters what it means to yourself. You see, we are here to circle the 7. 7 days of a week, that's a cycle. You see, we are here to circle the 7. We are told, that the world was created in 7 days. That's another cycle. You see? And that cycle represents the divine year, of the great God. And in his time is not like our time. You see? In fact, one of the main things that the great God Allah said that he is disappointed with man about is the fact that he abuses time. In other words, he wastes his time doing that which is not beneficial to his upliftment, so to speak. You see? So this is a powerful demonstration, family. Like I said, we got a lot of ground to cover, and we're going to try to do it in a little time, so to speak. Time enough or whatever for our people to really go into the essence of what it is that they had to bring forth. And we just say gratitude and welcome again to another Moorish Perspectives. Praise be to Allah, Islamism without the schism. So what I'm going to do, because I got this now, I'm going to share my screen. Like I said, we had a grand drawing in our last class. We wasn't able to air it on here, but nevertheless, our people still was able to get the truth, who received it. And you can always go back to our conference call and listen to the playbacks if you want to see what it is that we was building on at that particular time. So Okay, let me put this here. And I'm going to open this up right here. Mashallah. Okay, here we go. I don't know why these images, they seem to not do what you want them to do when you want them to do it. Okay. All right, there we go. So let me share this here. Put it back up there. There we go. And let me know when y'all see the screen sharing family that's up there. I'm gonna do it this way. Yeah, we'll go that route right there because that way when I'm sharing between the screen, y'all can see it that way as well. Okay. So can y'all see me in my activity Moorish Ken as I'm moving around right now on my screen?
Islam.
Islam?
Yes, sir.
Okay, gratitude. Thank you, Moorish Ken. All right. All right. So what we gonna do? We're gonna go here. And actually, we had sent this out to our family last week. We know the family that's out there didn't see this since we're dealing with going beyond the circle of the sun. And what we have here is the symbology, of pretty much, the per-ah, or what they call the pharaoh that passes on and goes through the Amduat. And you can see the symbolism in this from the stars that are here, that are supporting the body, so to speak. This one is moving through the Amduat. This is just one. They got many expressions of this, pictorials that you can find, but this particular one is coming from the Nakata culture, which goes very far back in the Kemetic timeline, 3800 to 3500 BC. So when you add that on to, the time of Christ, that's really almost 6,000 years, so to speak, from Upper Egypt, so to speak, right? That's if you go on and you put the 2,000 years on the 3,800. The BC mean this before that. So, that's what 5,800. Years. You round that off 200 years. That's almost 6,000 years. But this is that particular image that we have showing there. And we quoted a whole bunch of measures in our last measure. I'm just running this down to go and segue into what our present measure is. We quoted the prophet where he was talking about, wake up, you sleepy-headed Moors. I'm going to take you up above the sun, moon, and stars and around the throne of the mighty Allah. This is Prophet Noble Drew Ali saying this. And he said, the end of time, that those that will be in the apparatus will be able to look down on earth and see people that fleeing for their life. Now, some people might call this, like I said in our last class, they think this is a spaceship. Some people might call it the mother plane or the soul plane. The soul plane will be more proper, so to speak, but some people may think this is a physical apparatus or something that they're gonna go up in and beam me up, Scotty. The body. But anyway, he went on to say, I have airplanes, zeppelins, and apparatus, and we talked about the government of self. The government, because that's what apparatus means. If you look up the word apparatus, it means government. And we know an airplane is, we know the Zeppelin is, and we know that the prophet had, the military on his side, according to some of our oral statements. It is because he had, people of high status that he associated and affiliated with, that he had, this power. The politicians, such as Oscar the Priest, Louis B. Anderson, people that were part of, his more science temple, and we can go on and on and on with this. He definitely had ties. The prophet had ties in what people would call the low road of society as well as the high road. That was the nature of Yehoshua. Jesus was the same way. He had those who mainly would be considered, uh, the scum of the earth, basically, around him. But he also was a man of high status. But anyway, I'm going to take my good Moors up in an apparatus on an incline until it's all over with. That's that gradual process of going up, a steep structure. It can be a mountain, it can be a pyramid. But nevertheless, you're going up on an incline. That's what an incline is. It's an angle by which one goes up, on a slope, so to speak. You see? So this apparatus, being that the prophet talked about taking our people up above the sun, moon, and stars, we know it was the soul plane, because the prophet said, I remember I was on the soul plane, and remember when I was Noah. And Noah was a carpenter, and he built the ark. Remember we were talking about using the tools in the workshop of the mind, to build the ark. When the flood came, he said, men swam out to the ark and knocked on the door and said, Noah, Noah, let us in. And I told them the door is locked. And the angel came and took the key away. And you can see a symbolic expression, of Noah in the ark, right? And you see the signs, the celestial signs around him. We call this the wheel of Dendera in the ancient Kemetic teaching. European like to call it zodiac and all that type of drawing. But the wheel of Dendera, is also a part of the Amduat. That's synonymous to what we were showing y'all here earlier. These stars are symbolic to the Amduat. The Amduat is also referred to as the underworld in certain aspects of Kemet. But we were really talking about the spiritual attachment to that. We even went into showing the temple of Luxor as it relates to the body of man. You see, we showed that as well. See where it says Luxor temple, a human skeleton superimposed over the Luxor temple map. We showed that man laying down just as Noah was laying down. So the same symbolism that can be used on the land for the man, as dealing with a temple of perfection, can also be used in the water for man as a temple of perfection, right? But we see the man also standing up here. Now that he's standing up in this particular picture where he's laying down here in the skeletal form, this is where man can now offer you something, that he has been raised from a horizontal level to a living perpendicular, as they like to call it, right? He's an upright, independent, and fearless man, right? So here, when you deal with the two that held and the five that fell, we understand that one comes from divine consciousness, into the manifest, but the greatest of them is their intuition, and their telepathy. We showed this same thing because the boat is being symbolic to the soul of man, in which man can travel upon the plane of soul. So when the prophet talk about the apparatus, and we talk about the soul plane, just like he was able to remember himself when he was Noah, when we get into the plane of soul, we can demonstrate the same thing. And we don't have to physically die to go there, even though beyond the physical death is the plane of soul. But you can work upon the spiritual plane, within the soul plane, so to speak, while you are still within the body. This is why in chapter 1 of our Moorish Holy Quran, we are told that spirit man was given a soul that he might function upon the plane of soul. He was given a body of flesh that he might function upon the plane of things made manifest. Now, I don't know nothing about nobody else, but I know in order to function, this has got to be concrete reality. So functioning upon the plane of soul, how do you do this while still being within the body? It's a process that you have to go to and go through. You see, it's a progress that you have to go to and go through. And I'm saying that for a reason. You see? So just as the angels ascend and descend, like I say all the time, we are able to take messages from our ascension and bring them back down in our descending. You see? Or when we leave the body, we still, after our ascension, can continue to work from the plane of soul. Goodness gracious, that battery went dead quick. I put that much truth in there that quick. Give me a second here, Morris Ken. I'm just trying to make sure this thing don't bottom out on us here. Man, now ain't that something? Give me 1 second here. I don't want to go a second further. Well, this demonstration end up cutting off on us. I hate that I have to deal with this little imperfection right here in this system. I gotta get me another cord. And it don't act like this right here. Seems like till I go to getting ready to teach in my class. That's the crazy part about it. Okay, so we see it's powered there. There we go. All right now. We're gonna see if that right there hold us up. So anyway, as I was going through this here, like I said, all of this is talking about the process of, a cycle. So in this particular cycle, and you're going to see me revisit this particular slide here in the next presentation. This is the presentation I used for last week's measure. And we see that there's a drawing here on where the bar is being delivered, and in some cases taken away. In this case, we can say it's being taken away, after a process of being delivered, previously in one cycle of birth. Now one is going through the process of death into rebirth. Now this can be symbolic, and it can also deal with the metaphorical aspect of unfolding or metaphysical. And it also can deal with the actual, like I say, transitioning. But we want to talk to you about the process while you're still in the body. And then it was quoted here. This was by Asama al-Sadawi. This is some of their work. You can look his work up, and he deal with a lot of symbology of the Kemetic teachings through the Grand Quran. But he quoted the Grand Quran. Well, Allah said, then we raised you up after your death that you might be thankful. Right? And once one is raised up, over here, this image is a symbol of the God-man. Resurrection. Now, one is in the boat. We're going to tell you what this is about in a minute. No, this is one that has become, one with the Amduat, the stars, as we say in ancient Kemet, because that's the belief in ancient Kemet. When you transition from the body, you go up to inhabit the Amduat. You see? So harmony, truth, balance, right order, and justice, which gave birth to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, is the outcome. This is what it looks like, in the expression of being able to sail upon smoother seas, so to speak. One is in the Amduat. One is traveling in the self. And what I want to do now, I want to switch over into my presentation that I have here. I want to make sure my family can see this. Can y'all see that more? Me switched over just then. I want to make sure before I go forward.
Yes, sir.
Okay, gratitude, Islam. All right. Thank you, Grand Secretary of the State. Okay, so what we have here, since we're talking about, the mysteries of Egypt, and we're talking about the degree that takes us into the chamber of the dead, there's a drawing that we came up with, expressing everything it is that our prophet has brought to us. And a lot of these signs and symbols, they come off of the charter, of the prophet's original temple, his grand major temple. And so we took these elements and placed them here to show you that the prophet symbolically had pretty much presented to the people a tree of life. When you look at the way he arranged it, all we did is brought it together, in the symbols that we have here, where you see, the Sphinx with the pyramid, the battering camel of endurance, the great pyramids, the lion laying down with the lamb, and, our crescent, with and star, which represents the grand national emblem, then our grand national seal, which is the circle 7, the eye of Allah's providence, so to speak, with the beams coming down from it, the hand clasp of union, the feds, all of these are really, when you pull them together, they represented a tree of life chart. And in ancient teachings that we deal with, you have people that believe that these teachings come from the Greco-Roman, Indo-European, India, but really these elements were already present in ancient Kemet, dealing with the 10, so to speak, way before, these other systems come on to manifest, and you can see more about that if you go to our website and you go into Matheno's archives. That's a whole nother measure. But in this particular drawing, we have a symbolic expression of the prophet in the soul plane. As you can see his picture here, and this is symbolic to the soul plane, the top portion, and it looks like, a celestial mosque, so to speak, a celestial expression of what they would like to call Masjid al-Haram in the holy city Mecca. You see, this is celestial expression of that. In fact, in the teachings of al-Islam, it speaks that there's a celestial Kaaba that seat above the earthly Kaaba. So this is why I speak on the teaching that we demonstrate. Our measures have to do with more of the celestial rites, ceremony, and form, which represents a rite symbolic that was introduced to us by our holy prophet. So not only do you see him in the elevated sense, but you see beneath everything here, he's on solid ground. He's on the rock of understanding. You see, standing before the waters of purity, so to speak. We see the swift angel ADEPT emblem that we was inspired to bring forth, as well, and that is where all of our unfoldment come from. This is the essence behind what we call the ancient Egyptian Moorish rite of the mystic crypts of Misraim. You see, what does it have to do with ancient Egypt? The Egyptian adept. These rites are our rights. We ain't got no demonstration where we getting it from the European. These are the rites, ceremonies, and form that the prophet have inspired us through deep research and study. We can't just make this stuff up, couldn't just make it up, and make it make sense if it wasn't the prophet guiding us to demonstrate it. You see, our chairman couldn't have just made up what we have in the book of fire, the exhuming of a nation, and all the literature that he has brought forth if he wasn't a student of an Egyptian adept? You see? So all of us have a work that we were called to do. And this was part and parcel of my calling. I found my purpose. And it was to show our people, what it was the prophet had brought us in the right ceremonies and form of the teaching that he brought us. And keep it pure. Keep it Moorish. It belonged to us. We ain't got to go to no European and try to be them. We can be us. So when we say mystic Crips of Misraim, that come from our Moorish Holy Quran. I didn't come up with that. You see? So anyway, let's go further into this particular drawing. I have here, and I actually demonstrated this a while back, this particular chart right here, showing the temple, in the body of man, so to speak. If you notice, you see 7 seals, on the body as a temple. You see? And it goes off into a whole bunch of mess, and it talk about, the temple as the body as the temple. And you see the high priest up here, they even say the turban, the holy of holies. So your turban, when you wrap your head just like the prophet has his pagri on, this is your holy of holies. This is where your high priests are. We actually tell you that right there too in the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation. Priest in plural and cells, so to speak. Some people like to talk about the cranial nerves, when it comes to dealing with the body. But nevertheless, you see 1 up to 7 from here. And I ain't going to go into everything that's expressed here because I don't want to spend that much time talking about that, so to speak. But just know that you come from a base and then you rise up through that particular temple, which is built based on the nature of man, and a woman, because they both have, the limbs of arm, leg, arm, head. The gender doesn't matter in the spirit realm, though. So yeah, one moves from 1 to 7 here, 1 to 7 here, whether they're dealing with the temple as a body or they are dealing with the body as a temple. And this is where the East meets the West. You see, the East represents what? The spiritual aspect of man. The West represent what? The physical aspect of man, the outer aspect. So when one talks about, the journey that one takes from east to west, and back again, this is a cycle. This all has to do with one being a builder of the temple of perfection. And building the temple of perfection, this is connected to symbology that has to do with the temple that is on the manifest. Remember, the temple is made after man, man is made after temple, just like the ark. Both of these vessels, whether dealing with the one on the land, dealing with the temple, of Luxor, or we deal with the one within the man, they both are connected to being built with tools. We're dealing with these tools that we use in the workshop of the mind where thought is used to build character. And the prophet stands here, as a grand expression, of one that has become a temple of perfection. Now, what is the significance behind this as it relates to our present chapter? We were told in our chapter dealing with, the death and burial, of Elizabeth and Mary, that death is no enemy of man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on smoother seas. All right now. So when you move out from the land, you see, you have dealt with building the temple of perfection. And then you go out to sail within the waters. When you go out to sail on smoother seas, when you leave this earthly vessel, so to speak. Now, like I said, you can look at this either through your demise, or you can look at this through the realm of, you functioning upon the plane of soul, meaning you ascend while you're still in the body, through meditation, through contemplation, you can take this journey. You can look at it either way, but nevertheless, you have to have that scimitar of consciousness to be able to cut the cord that binds the human boat to earth, meaning that bind you to the senses of the body. Your sight, hear, taste, touch, and smell. You see, you got to be able to cut that cord to sail on smoother seas. Consciousness is what allows this to take place. You see? Now, while we on the plane of things made manifest, and this vessel, so to speak, is moored, anchored, by the laws, or in the laws of the great God of law, why it's tied off, so to speak, to the harbor, of human life, while we dealing with these things, this is the golden cord of love, but when you go into the spirit realm, there's also a celestial cord that's connected, to the body. And the cable tow in masonry ain't got nothing on this. The golden cord of love, is so strong, man, it run throughout all the laws. Remember, you moored it to the harbor. Love is synonymous with the word more. You see? But anyway, so now that we understand about sailing on smoother seas, that's when you become the God man, master of Allah's nature. You see? Master of Allah's nature. M-A-N. So if death is no enemy of man, but a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on smoother seas. Now, it makes sense when you go back to, the chapter that we're dealing with, because one was told the same thing in regards to dealing with this mystery of the dead. When it was taught, about when it said the carriers came and brought the body of a mother to the chamber of the dead, and just one mourner followed, and she was a girl of 10 years. You see? And then if we go back further, we was also told, to another woman that she followed but an empty house. And her son was not in it. She was mourning her son. And he said, you weep because your son is dead, but death is not a cruel word. Your son can never die. I don't know about nobody else, but if you can't see that this is a lesson where one is learning how to preserve the spiritual body, the celestial body from death, then I don't know what we've been studying. But he said, you weep because your son is dead. Death is not a cruel word. Your son can never die. So somebody told you was black. Well, black, according to science, means death. Well, what about the fact that you can't die? And you put on this celestial God? Huh? That's when death becomes a friend. That's when death is not a cruel word. He said beyond, let's go on. He said he had a sign, a task assigned to do in the garb of flesh, and he came and he did his work, and then he laid the flesh aside and did not need it more. Beyond the human sight, he has another work to do, and he will do it well, and then pass to other tasks, and by he will attain the crown of perfect life. And what your son has done, what he yet must do, we all must do. You see? So when you look at it from this aspect right here, then you understand that there's work to be done upon the plane of soul. This is why we tell you, Prophet Noble Drew Ali told the people, he said that he could better do his work from the plane of soul. He did this and stated this because he had already seen what it was like to work from the plane of soul or work within the plane of soul. He understood this as an adept, being able to go within a quiet place and meditate and contemplate. He understood what it means. That's why he understood that there the enemy couldn't hide. So he could better teach us from the plane of soul. This is the purpose of being able to speak with the ancestors. If you ain't trying to demonstrate on that level, then everything else is theoretical. Are you truly trying to have a conversation with your prophet? Are you truly trying to meet him upon the plane of soul where he can teach you? You see, you got to transcend, the carnal aspects of the body, sight, hear, and taste, touch, and smell. You got to get rid of, all of that. You see, what you see don't matter when you get to the plane of soul. I'm talking about what you see on the manifest with these physical eyes, the carnal eyes. What you hear with the carnal ears don't matter when you go to the plane of soul, because you can't do nothing but get the lesson. You can't do nothing but hear from a divine standpoint, because by very virtue of you being able to make it there, that means you had to be conscious. A NBC can't go nowhere but up the street and around the corner. So-called Negro, black, and colored man. So one has to be resurrected from the dead or death. If black, according to science, means death, then we have to be resurrected from that black way of thinking, that carnal way of thinking. Don't get it twisted, because we know black, according to, if you want to put it in the context of race, that's a construct. Everybody know that. Even, a lot of those who demonstrated from the revolutionary standpoint that came up with the concept of talking about black this and black that. They didn't mean for it to be looked at in the racial aspect. They was trying to find some power. But many of our people didn't know that the power comes in the death. You see? Because the death allows one to go through the cycle of rebirth and resurrection. You see? So here's the next drawing. And this is actually coming from the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation. This is actually coming from the preparation chamber. This portion that I have here. It was stated, all rise. And the prophet actually advances to the neophyte, which would be yourself in this case, because we got to go through what it is he went through. Remember, we got to put ourselves, in his position. We got to go through what he went through in order to master ourselves. You see? So it says, the noble prophet said, from this learn a lesson each day. Come deed, good or ill, he gathers to his soul. And finally, when the cycle of life is ended and work on life's pyramid is still, he is ushered into the presence of his God. See, this is the work that we do upon the plane of things made manifest. When we go beyond the plane of things made manifest, life's pyramid, the work that we were demonstrating to build a temple of perfected man, is over. And now we go beyond the circle of the sun and we are ushered into the presence of the great God. There's a work that must be done beyond the circle of the sun. You got me? So in our last drawing, we showed a chart. And that particular chart dealt with the spiritual initiatory cycle. In that spirit of spiritual, so to speak, initiatory cycle, in the first half of the process, you see a progression, a gradual progression from birth which deals with self-development. That's your first quadrant, so to speak, on the bottom. Now this cycle is going up. So one moves from this cycle into self-balancing. That's the other quadrant here, dealing with, the initiatory cycle of life. And one moves from birth into 90 degrees of initiation, which is dealing with the first degree. And then the second point of initiation, where one goes up, into a balance of the pairs of opposites, understanding duality. And then the third, one goes into integration of the personality, so to speak. That's the third degree of initiation. This is dealing with your cycle of life. You see, so what I'm showing you is that we are actually, the reason why we learn these 7 adept degrees, why the prophet brought them to us, not so that we go through them in a ritual on the manifest one time. Well, ain't nothing wrong with symbolically demonstrating, a divine play of the act, if that's what you want to do. But the main thing is the process and the progress within is what matters. Because you constantly go through those cycles. All of the degrees that you find, from sincerity all the way up to the chamber of the dead, leading into the senior course, are degrees that you will be going through throughout your life. So we can begin to look at circumstances and situations as brotherhood tests that lead up into the adept chamber. You see? In other words, when you meet someone, be it a significant other or a person that you may call an acquaintance or a friend, then you meet these ones, and in that purpose, you can believe at some particular time, if you are in the life cycle with those people, you're going to end up going through these same degrees dealing with those people. Or it can be a person you meet one time and they might hit you with a degree that you done went through. Think about the degrees that we go through, because that's what life gonna bring to you. And this is the cycle. This is the real expression of the circle 7. If you meet an individual and there's a degree of sincerity to learn by dealing with that individual, then you're gonna be put in a particular situation to where it's going to be a situation that's going to test your sincerity. Or they may even be in your realm to teach you sincerity. And we can say the same thing by every other aspect of the degrees, from, dealing with justice and faith and all of that right there. Either you are going to be in a situation to where you're going to be on the receiving end or you giving, but you can say the student or the teacher. But you most definitely going to learn today and every other day throughout the 7 days of the cycle of your life. You see? And this is until you drop the guard. So while you are looking to deal with an adept chamber outside of the self, the true adept passage is going through these cycles of life in the initiatory cycle. And I'm showing you the first half of the progressing process. But right here, then you have the second. And you see it goes through the 4th initiation, and it takes you all the way through the 5th, where you become the adept. That's the star hunt. Then the transformation of the cause of your body in the 6th initiation and the 7th initiation. We mentioned this last week. From 180 degrees in the plane, all the way to 360. And then this is where one becomes the enlightened Buddha. Now, what does Buddha have to do to be mentioned, in relation to dealing with Kemet? Why are we mentioning this? Because when we go into our chapter, the Egyptian mysteries, that refers to the enlightened Buddha, it states right here at the bottom of this particular semicircle. And this semicircle reminds me of the one that Ta has in front of him again, which represents the rising sun, so to speak. To become enlightened represents light, the light of the sun of divinity. So it says the words of Buddha are recorded in the Indian sacred books. Attend to them, for they are part of the instruction of the holy breath, right? This is from the Mysteries of Egypt, our chapter in the Moorish Holy Quran called the Mysteries of Egypt, right? Why is it talking about Buddha in the Mysteries of Egypt? So we quote again from this chapter. And it says, and then a mighty master came, a Buddha of enlightenment, who turned away from wealth, honors of the world, and found silence in the graves and caves, and he was blessed. This is a symbolic death that this man had to go through to become a Buddha of enlightenment. So every degree represents one actually going through a metamorphosis process, a death in the wake of rebirth. This is the cycle of life. So listen now, it goes on. It says a Buddha of enlightenment who turned away from the wealth. That's a death that he had to overcome. All that wealth, everything he got, that's what most people fall by climbing from when they're in the heights of divinity. But he gave it up in order to pursue a path. Now, if that ain't a Buddha, I don't know what it is. Show me an NBC that got $1 million that'll give it up to pursue their higher self. And I'll show you God made manifest. And all the honors of the world now. The honors represent deaths. That in which you will be honored with in the world by man. To give all that up, that's a symbolic death you got to die in order to live and be the true you. Look, it says, and found the silence in the graves and the caves, and he was blessed. What is the silence in the graves and the caves? We're going to get into that in a minute. It says he taught the gospel of a higher life and taught men how to honor man. And he had no doctrine of the gods to teach. He just knew man. And so his creed was justice, love, and righteousness. So this is what the initiatory cycle brings about in the God-man. Now remember, all this is coming from the Mysteries of Egypt. Our chapter, we're dealing with Kemet, so we might as well deal with the Mysteries of Egypt too. But there's a Buddha being spoken of here, and that goes back to the same cycle that I showed you in this semicircle, this chart, that shows the Buddha of the 7th initiation. Now let's go further, because now it's starting to make more sense. I want to talk about these, these graves and caves in the minute, and the symbology behind these things. Coming from the Mysteries of Egypt, following after speaking on the enlightened Buddha coming right behind that, it was stated, the land of Egypt is the land of secret things. The mysteries of the sages lie locked bound in our temples and shrines. The masters of all times and climes come here to learn. And when your sons have grown to manhood, they will finish all their studies in Egyptian schools. So now we know what it means when we go into the senior course. You see, in the true Kemetic or Egyptian schools, going beyond the plane of things made manifest has to do with celestial Kemet, celestial Egypt. Oh, you didn't know that there was a Kemet above? Kemet below on the plane of things made manifest dealing with the land is beautiful. But Kemet from a celestial aspect is even more grandiose. And that's what we're talking about. There's a Kemet that exists beyond the plane of things made manifest. How do you get there? The same way that Al-Sar was able to get there, in the celestial ship of the north, the boat of Sekhet, the bark of Ra. Oh yeah, we're going to make it plain. But I've said enough. Tomorrow at the rising of the sun, we meet again. The land of Egypt is the land of secret things, sacred things. And it's in you. You see, the mysteries of the sages lie locked bound in the temples and shrines. We were given the keys to unlock these temples and shrines. That's what I'm giving to my Moorish kin right now. And I couldn't give it to you if my prophet didn't give it to me. The masters of all times and climes come here to learn. Let that marinate a bit. So now what I did, and we're going to try to do this briefly, I kind of wanted to go into certain aspects, you know, the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation. And there's a lecture given by the Egyptian Brotherhood. And I took portions of that because it highlights what was said in the adept degrees that were given from sincerity up to the adept chamber of the dead, going into the senior course. Simultaneously, while one is able to go through those degrees, the basic degrees, they are also going through the higher degrees. And the epitome of the higher degrees are highlighted in the 7th adept degree. Listen to what it said. It says, the master said, Logos. The Logos will give heed to what I say. No man can enter the light until he has found himself. Go forth and search till you have found your soul, and then return. The guide led Yehoshua to a room in which the light was faint and mellow, like the light of the early dawn. The chamber walls were marked with mystic signs, with hieroglyphs and sacred texts in the chamber, and Yehoshua found himself alone, where he remained for many days. He read the sacred texts and thought out the meanings of the hieroglyphs and sought the import of the master's charge to find himself. A revelation came. He got acquainted with his soul, and he found himself. Then he was not alone. This is coming from our chapter in relation to Ali receiving the mystic name and number and passing the first brotherhood test. In other words, Yehoshua will come again. That's why I say Ali. But there was a measure dealing with this drawing when I went into the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation. And there's a expression, like I said in the lecture, that was given by the Egyptian Brotherhood. And it's parallel with what is stated, what we just read here, you know, concerning Yehoshua. It states, it gives us detail, some commentary. The Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation dealing with the degrees that take you beyond the circle of the sun. He went with his guide through several long corridors, from whose walls echoes of their steps rounded, and they descended a flight of stairs until they last arrived at the place of their destination. What we think is a game, huh? If you're looking right now, I'm going to show you what is being described here. This flight of stairs that one is going down, being led by the Hierophant. If you look at the charts that we have in the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation, for those you have it, all you got to do is go into your files and you should be able to pull it up. But those who are watching, you know, you can see exactly what's being said. And we want to show this to you when it's talking about one going down the corridors, you know, or the stairs, so to speak, you know, into this place, because we actually have a picture, a few pictures, you know, that actually show, for example, what they call the elevation looking west. And they show one looking at the Sphinx, and behind the Sphinx is the third pyramid, which is the smallest. You know, then you have the second one next to that, and you have the Great Pyramid. You know, and there's a pathway to go to these pyramids by going between the paws of the Sphinx. This is very significant because this is what a prophet was said to come out at after he went through his initiation. You see? But going into this particular drawing, this is why Matheno said Behold, this land of Egypt of the dead. Our temples long have been the tombs of hidden things. We heard about the secret things, right? Hidden things of time. Our temple crypts and caves are dark. We talked about them caves, huh? In the graves. It says, in light, there is no secret thing. All right. So that in which you heard was secrets of Kemet. When the light is on the manifest, all secrets have been laid bare. The sun reveals all hidden truth, and there are no mysteries in Allah. See, this is what we mean when we say we come from the chemistry into the ministry of death, and from the ministry of death, we come into the mystic, the ministry of deific life. You see? Deific life. There are no mysteries in Allah. Behold the rising sun. His beams are entering every door. Yes, every crevice of the mystic crypts of Misraim. Didn't I tell you that came from our teaching? I didn't make it up. We hail the light. All Egypt craves the light. Come on now. So, looking at this thing, coming out of theory into actual practice, we learn that in the Great Pyramid, the initiatory process takes place, and we are able to make progress in the degrees. And the more we become enlightened, the more our minds become illuminated with the truth. We unfold like the ADEPT. That's the sun disk with wings on it. Oh, you know the one that we showed you earlier? We'll get to that in a minute. We're going to need a few minutes extra, to finish this presentation. So we ask that you forgive us. It ain't going to be 2 minutes, but just a few minutes. Want to make it plain. So where's the first place that Yehoshua had to go? We're going to come back to these particular measures I'm showing you right here in a second, right? I'm just scrolling through to show you what we're dealing with. All of this is within man, but I really want to take you here. Let's go back here. In these pictures, it actually shows the map by which one goes into or between the paws of the Sphinx. Now remember what we were told a few minutes ago. We were told that he went with his guide through several long corridors, from whose walls the echoes and their steps resounded, and they descended a flight of stairs until last they arrived to the place of their destination. So what is this referring to? Here are the stairs here. If you are looking, there's a symbolic gate here coming from the present sand surface, and one walks down, you see, at the top, and they can come through the paws of the Sphinx. But there's also a secret entrance. So in all actuality, this is the entrance the initiate is taken through. They are not taken through the top portion, but the bottom portion. And you're going to see the reason for this in a little bit. So one moves through this place and is led to a chamber. There's a reception chamber here under the Sphinx. This is a secret entrance. You see, this is a ladder here. You see? So one is moving, and there's even a shaft of stairs that'll take you up and take you out back through the paws of the Sphinx and up the stairs above it. But down here in this particular chamber, there's a significance for this. It goes down, they go down the steps, and under here, the entrance under the Sphinx, and then they go down beneath what they call the circular temple of the neophytes, or the neophytes' passage to the pyramids. So we can see that the neophyte, he was going with his guide through several long corridors from whose walls the echoes and steps of their feet resounded, and they descended a flight of stairs until at last they arrived to the place of their destination. And when the hood was removed, remember we were told that our prophet was, blindfolded in his initiation process. When the hood was removed, he found himself in a cave hewn in solid rock. I told you we were going to tell you about that cave, huh? It was a high arched vault with massive pillars cut in manner to represent figures of men and fabulous animals. That's metal netta, right? Holy impressions in stone, right? What people like to call hieroglyphics, right? But didn't they tell you up here that Yehoshua was led to a room in which the light was faint and mellow, in the light of early dawn, and the chambers of marked with the chambers' walls were marked with mystic signs and with hieroglyphs and sacred texts. And in the chamber, Yehoshua found himself alone, where he remained for many days. Listen, that's the Moorish Holy Quran I'm quoting now. But this is from the Egyptian ADEPT, rite of self-initiation, which are the degrees that were found that are mentioned in the exhuming of a nation. It says the only light which entered the vault came through a round opening, it says, far up in the roof, where a small part of the clear blue sky could be seen. Upon the walls of that prison were written proverbs and mottos consisting of extracts from the books of the Egyptian and Indian sages who may have lived in the far distant past, perhaps even in prehistoric times. They found the teachings of India in Kemet. That ain't strange, because most of the teachings of India come from Kemet. You're talking about the Hinduist Kushites who received their teaching from the Medo Kushites. That's why you can find the teachings of the enlightened Buddha, Bhatta, in ancient Kemet, Pata, Pata, Ta. Okay, that's a key. So it says, India, the sages may have lived in the far distant past, perhaps even in prehistoric times, when that which we now call Europe formed the bottom of the sea, and another continent was at the height of its civilization. So Europe is being referred to as at the bottom of the sea. And this is during the time of the civilization of Atlantis, they refer to here. But now it has become the reverse. And Europe is at the height of its civilization, and Atlantis is beneath the waters. That's a cycle too. That was necessary in order for us to become made manifest. But it says another continent was at the height of its civilization, at a place where now the ocean rose its waves. The room was furnished in the most primitive fashion, containing merely the most necessary requisites. Listen. And the Hierophant said, O Egyptian neophyte, for such you have now become, you will have to remain here in solitude for an indefinite period of time. I advise you to occupy yourself with thinking of nature of man and his destiny, to meditate about your own self. I shall give you the pen used by the scribe Tehuti during the ancient times. I request that you write down the thoughts that would enter your mind which seem most important to you. I wish you success, but I shall abandon you now to these antiquated dens to be on my way. You see? And so when we go into this particular drawing, we see that what was given in these degrees, now all of this was already there when I found it. I just put it together, in chronology, so to speak, so that our family will be able to understand, the degrees that our prophet went through. But notice how these degrees are given detail, to the plane of things that one had went through, coming through the first degrees that relate to the seven. Now there's a reason why, when we go back here, if you look at this symbol of the ADEPT, with the comedic adept Hierophant drawing in it. You know, it actually shows 3 manifestations of the 7. And those 3 manifestations of the 7 mathematically comes to 21. You see? But if you go into the drawing that has to do with our adept seal that we have with the scimitar and the star and the angelic wings, you know, with the same symbol in the middle, you got the golden cord of love. The 7 is between the 3 knots, just like we showed you. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago. You know, there's a 7 above it, and that's 28. You add 5 to that 28, that's 33. Chapter 33. You see? So, chapter 33 is the epitome dealing with the adept chamber of the dead. Ain't got nothing to do with no masonry. But it's only the beginning because it is a piece of that which is part and parcel of the grand journey. So what you deal with on the plane of things made manifest, this is the real secret. You know, coming through your slavery along the line of a 33rd degree parallel. You know, they like to call it, you know, the line, you know, that comes from the west, you know, into the east, or goes from the east into the west, the same path that the slave ships were taking on, coming out of the halls of the house of the car, so to speak. But when we go into the aspect beyond the circle of the sun, now we're dealing with something that transcends, you know, this horizontal plane that they call life or the physical. Once we come out of being dead in the head, now we can exalt or cut above and then go into the heights of divinity around the throne of Allah. That's when you make your full 360 degrees and continue in the cycle 720, 1080, and to infinity. Ain't no end. That's what we talk about when we say infinite wisdom. Wisdom speak from out of the highest plane of spirit life. How else could we have this? So again, let's go on here so we can open up the floor. It says the logos did not care to rest. Note we at another particular place in the journey. Wait, why wait in this luxurious room? This is Yehoshua speaking. I need not rest. My Father's work upon me presses hard, and I will go on and learn my lessons all. If there are trials, let them come, for every victory over self gives added strength. And then the guide led on, and in the chamber of dark, as night, was Yehoshua placed and left alone. And the days were spent in deep solitude. Right? Now, if we go back to what it is that we were referring to the Egyptian adept rite of self-initiation, listen, it says thus, and this is like a commentary. The senior course is like a commentary, you know, upon what took place by going through the first 7 adept degrees. So it says, thus, when the free spirit seeking for knowledge sends its fillers into the tomb of living clay, blindly following the law of reincarnation, he finds himself alone without a guide, left to his own thoughts, and with only a faint light above the coming from his former home. While on the walls of the prison house called the mind, he may find dim recollections of the teachings of wisdom acquired in previous lives. He was now alone, and there is nothing more terrible than isolation and solitude to those who know of no other life but of that of external sensation, and who cannot create their own thoughts. See, you got to fast from all this pleasure that you love in the world that come through the 5 senses, especially if there is no change in their surroundings. to attract their attention, to stimulate them to think. Thinking is an art, and few can think what they wish or hold on to a thought. Hold that thought. Men only think what they must. That means what they made to do. When it comes to the senses, that's how you can be made a slave, right? They feed on the ideas that enter their minds without asking. Welcome and unwelcome thoughts enter. You ain't got no control. It's involuntary. What you want to think is good and the thought that you think ain't so good. They neither come at our bidding nor go away when they are not wanted. They are like disorderly guests that do not obey the rules which the landlord prescribes. Sound like some Saeed nursing right there. You know, this what happened when your thoughts become like disorderly guests that do not obey the rules which the landlord prescribes. You know, so that's why one goes into this state. That's why the guide led Yehoshua into this chamber that was dark at night. But what does this chamber look like? Well, we see going through the passage of the pyramid. We see he came through the temple of, this particular area here, the circle temple of the Neophytes. You see us a break over here on the way to the temple of the pyramids as well, right? You know, there's a chamber here, the circular temple. And then there's a hidden door, passageway, where the three passageways to the pyramid meet. So they branch off. You know, if you were standing in front of the Sphinx, there are pathways that go through each pyramid. The small one, the one that's greater than that, and the one that comes after that, which is the Great Pyramid. See, it says to the pyramid, but this one is being placed in a particular chamber. A chamber where they got to reflect. So if one has made their way to the pyramid, that would have to be the subterranean chamber. You see? At least one of the chambers of reflection. So one is taken into this chamber of reflection here after getting there, and they have to sit there before they can go through the queen's chamber and the king's chamber, and they got to reflect in this chamber. Now, what is an idea that this chamber looks like? I gave all the symbolic breakdown. Here, the chamber walls of the heart and the mind, right here in the soul of man. You know, this is a symbolic expression when they speak of the images that are in man. It's already there. It's in you, like ragu, right? So, in this particular measure, you will find all of these things that we look at outside ourselves are actually within the self. You see, the trial chamber of hypocrisy is the chamber that one was being put in. Can you imagine being put in this right here? You know, you being blindfolded, you're led in here, you're in the dark, and you get put in a little spot like this right here. Got a little enough for you to lay down on this little hard stone bed right here. But you got to lay in there and reflect. Now, we're allowed to meditate in the comfort of our own home to try to find ourselves. But imagine being taken into a place that you're not familiar with. And you've been put in this darkness, and they seal it up and say, well, this is where you got to sit until you overcome this particular measure right here. This is the trial chamber of hypocrisy. Oh, it's going to let you know whether you know your higher self or the lower self. Remember I was talking about them tombs and caves? It's a burial chamber too. A room of resolution. You know, that's the only thing you'll find beneath the pyramid. A burial chamber. When you go into the pyramid beyond the burial chamber, there's nothing more than, ascension passageways and so forth to get to the next degree of unfoldment. So that's your burial chamber. Check us out now. Like I say, we just getting a little time. We're going to open up in a minute. Want to make it plain. Look at what the burial chamber look like right here. The earth, one's own body. That's the burial chamber. Remember, this is subterranean vault. This is it right here. the earth, one's own body. That's the burial chamber. So now, if that's the burial chamber, then what is within the body has to be released from the body, in order for one to truly live. That's resurrection process. Not the resurrection of the physical body, but resurrection of the spiritual body after being freed from the carnal senses, sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell. You see? So now that we know this, let's speed it up a little bit. Like I told you, we didn't put this stuff up here just to look pretty. It's referred to as the chamber of ordeal here. Where you can be concerned, with your present concerns, with your self-mastery, right? The chamber of ordeal. You see? This was a descent that one had to go through to get here, right? So how do you get up through these other chambers? The queen's chamber, the king's chamber. How do you come from the chemistry of mortal life into the ministry of death, and from that into the mystic, we can say the mysteries of deific life? How do you do that? See, the secret places of the hidden God. As it is above, so it is below. As it is within, we can say so it is without. Let's go further. We almost done. We just want to show you how, an adept is being taken on this journey. All right. So the next degree, our brotherhood test. The Logos waited 7 days and then was taken to the Hall of Fame, a chamber rich in furnishings and lighted up with gold and silver lamps. The colors of its ceiling, decoration, furnishing walls were blue and gold. Its shelves were filled with books of masterminds. The paintings and statues were the works of the highest art. And Yehoshua, entranced with all his elegance and these manifests of thought, he read the sacred books and sought the meaning of the symbols and the hieroglyphs. This is all within him now. This is how we learn how to deal with Medu Neter. Because Yehoshua went through it. Remember, our prophet is Yehoshua will come again. So this is really Ali passing the third brotherhood test. Let's see what the lecture goes on to say. Remember, these degrees are preparation for that which deal with that which goes into the senior course. It says the monotony in which he lived remained unchanged, and there was no sound of any kind to be heard. He was surrounded by silence. And if it had not been for the small opening in the vault far above his head, he would not have known the changes of day and night. He studied the writings upon the walls and impressed them upon his memory, analyzing their meaning, and the more he thought about them, the more his mind seemed to expand and new ideas enter. He could not tell from whence they came, but he wrote them down upon tablets with which he had been provided. And often when in the morning he awoke from his slumber, these tablets had disappeared from his prison, and he knew not what had become of him. Man, if this don't sound like the prophet dictating to the principal to circle 7 after his degrees, then I don't know what it was. Remember, this neophyte, this student adept, is actually writing tablets that are being taken away from him as he sleeps. He saw no one enter the room, yet somebody must have taken them away. Likewise, the food with which he was provided was supplied by invisible means. So he was given divine sustenance. He didn't see nobody come and go, but the food was there to sustain him while he was going through this initiatory rite. It was of the simplest kind, consisting of bread, milk, fruit, and water. It was daily brought to him in some inexplicable manner. How or by what means he could not tell, for it was put in his prison during his sleep. However, he soon ceased to be astonished at such strange occurrences, and he began seriously the study of self. As he began accustomed to look within his own soul, a new world seemed to open before him, and his imagination grew stronger. And the picture presented before his inner eye became as objective, as real to him as the objects of the external world, only more beautiful and more ethereal, yet far more substantial than the latter. Visions of things which he had formerly seen, but which had apparently been lost to his memory, appeared again, vivid and real, with all their living details. Desires entered his heart immediately, took objective forms in his mind, representing in a seemingly living forms the objects of which he thought. And thus he saw many beautiful things in his visions, but also many horrible sights. Remember, he ain't got no power to, have no control over what's going on as far as how his thoughts are moving in this stage, because he's a student adept. He ain't learned to fully control and master his mind. It says, for no man is without evil, and evil thoughts that came to him were likewise represented in seemingly real but horrible forms. What is this plastic power over the imagination? And what do men by calling subjectives, what do men mean by calling subjective images merely works of imagination? He's saying, well, what are these feathers? Are these chains that bind me thus? He said, can we imagine anything that does not exist? Are the creations of our thoughts less real to us than the things which the imagination of others created for us? Is not the universe a product of the imagination of God? And are we not gods in our own inner world, able to create forms from the substance called the astral light? See, all of this is dealing with that teaching that deal with that which goes beyond the circle of the sun, that senior course. Everything that was dealing with that degree as it relates to the plane of things made manifest has to do with preparing one for that. You see, preparatory degrees. So these degrees that we go are preparatory degrees throughout life, so that when we run into particular situations, we know how to deal with it according to the senior course. Because now we have become fixated. We have been taken up above the sun, moon, and stars. The heart chakra, I always tell our people, you see the moon cradling the sun. So when you're taken up beyond that point, there's a ladder that reaches from the heart of man into the heart of Allah. That's how you get above the neck. That's how an angel, unfolds in the cherubim and seraphim. That's you. Man is the one that unfolds through the degrees of being a swift angel and becoming cherubim in their consciousness. Seraphim. What is the cherubim? Protector. What is the seraphim? Spirit of the Almighty God Allah. That's your goal, to go back to oneness. I didn't say that. That's what the Circle 7 said. That's what the prophet said. I'm just telling you what he said. Now, I may have my way of saying the way he said, but I am saying what the prophet said. That's all I'm trying to show you. We can't make this stuff up. This ain't no fairy tale or comic book. When other certain days had passed, the guide Yehoshua led to the hall of mirror, in the hall of most richly furnished and replete with everything. I'm showing you all of the different chambers and temples and aspects of the hall that Yehoshua was led through. Our prophet went through the same thing. The choicest viands and most delicious wines were on the boards, and maids in gay attire. That ain't the type of gay y'all thinking about. Don't get happy over there. Serve all with grace and cheerfulness, and men and women richly clad with them. And they were wild with joy, and they sipped from every cup of myrrh. Ali passes the fourth brotherhood test and takes the fourth degree of adept. So now this is where one actually begins to cross over, because this is where the adept chamber is opened up at. Why is it at the fourth? The same place where I say the heart is where the prophet places his hand upon his heart. He let you know home is where the heart is. Right here is where you can come from and get up into the realm of Allah. If you climb that ladder, that 3-step ladder of faith, hope, and love, that 3-step ladder from belief, faith, into fruition, that 3-step ladder of wisdom, will, and love. I didn't say that. That's in the circle self. I just got a way of saying it. Now, if it sounds foreign to you or sound like something else or over embellished, please excuse me. I just want to do my prophet justice when I speak. And that's how I visualize it. Beautiful. It's a vision, beautiful to me. So I express it that way. I don't mean no harm. So it says, gradually, he began to love this inner life, where he found the world as large as the outer world, with a space as infinite as that of the latter, with mountains and plains, with oceans and rivers, and people with beings of various kinds that looked up to him as their God. Now the neophyte is able to see himself in a world that's created through his own imagery, where he becomes the God of that creation. And that is the secret of the sacredness of who you are, spirit clothed with soul made in the form of Allah. In the Sufi teaching, it says Allah sent himself to himself that he may bear witness, man, to all it is that was himself. But anyway, it says, their creator drawing life from his will and nourishment from his thought, in the same sense as man receives his willpower and ideals from the God in the universe, appearing to him in his dreams, while asleep, and in visions while awake. Thus Ali sojourned the world of the elemental powers of nature and began to know the constituent parts of that organism called the human soul. Weeks, perhaps months, thus passed away. Who knows how long he remained in that tomb? He kept no record of the days and the nights he had entered there. And what is time and space after all but merely mental conceptions by which we attempt to measure the infinite? You know, so we had other aspects of taking one through these different degrees. You know, Yehoshua was taken through the sacred temple groves, rich in statues, monuments, and shrines, and yet Yehoshua loved to walk and meditate. And after he conquered the self, he talked with nature in these groves for 40 days, and then the guide took chains and bound him hand and foot and cast him into a den of hungry beasts, of unclean birds and creeping things. And then, you know, it was dark as night. Wild beasts howled and birds and fury screamed, and reptiles hissed, and Yehoshua said, who is it that did bind me thus? Why did I meekly sit to be bound down with chains? I tell you, none has the power to be bound with human soul, or what a fellow's made. Can you imagine that? And I went through this spatial aspect on the plane of soul, this initiation, you know, where I seen a queen that was bound in chains and she was being struck. You know, that would let me know that I was in the base of my spine, so to speak, coming out of, you know, what we call the scimitar sacrum. You know, that's where, you know, the serpentine fire is born from. But anyway, nevertheless, I had an experience that was similar to this. You know, but the thing is, can you imagine yourself being chained in a tomb full of serpents? Because that's what it is that you're in this particular dark area. You know, after you come up out of the chamber of ordeal, and you going up, you got to go through this. You know, and this was this area. In order to get up here, one had to come through what is called the antechamber. Where's the antechamber? See H right here? The antechamber, H. When you come up, hold on. Pardon, sir. These are all the letters here too, by the way, when you go into this journey. This is the antechamber. right here. And this is in the realm of the king's chamber. You know, the queen's chamber has its chamber. You know, but when we go back to what I was showing you in the degrees, what is the antechamber? We're going to show you real quick. We showed you earlier, but we're going to take you back to it. It's right here. The gloomy crypts of Mayor's School of Illusion. You see? And there's an antechamber, you know, that takes you into a preparation to go into the queen's chamber just as going into the king's chamber. You see, and all this has to do with that which is in your mind. But can you imagine being in that school of illusion and you hear snakes hisping and beasts roaring and, you know, all this right here going on, you know, and you in the dark? Oh my God. And you bound and chained? Man, you think that adept guy, he trying to kill you. You know, like the higher you go, at every level, there's a greater devil, so to speak. You like, oh my God. So look at your life circumstances and situation you go through. You know, the harder the test get, oh my God. You know, is this it, Allah? If you live through it, then it means that you must have passed the test. Some people fail and they become devoured by this illusion and cause them to lose their mind and become mad women or mad men. Trust me, I know. You ain't even got to ask me. All right. So it says, in all the land, there was no place more grandly furnished than the beauty parlors of the Temple of the Sun. Few students ever entered the room. Yeah, if they was able to make it out that chamber we just spoke of. The priest guarded them with awe and called them halls of mysteries. When Yehoshua had attained victory over fear, and definitely had to gain it over the fear of what he just come through, being bound and chained by a bunch of what was supposed to be serpents and beasts and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. So yeah, now I'm pretty sure he was like, woo, he was rubbing his brow by the time he gained the right to enter here. The guide led on the way, and after passing many richly furnished rooms, they reached the Hall of Harmony, and there was Yehoshua left alone. This is where Ali went through his degree, you know, and passed the 6th adept chamber of the Eastern Sages. Huh? Notice all of these are adept degrees. Remember I told you adept degrees start after the 4th. Then it states, the senior course of study was now open up, and Yehoshua entered and became a pupil of the Hereford. He learned the secrets of the mystic lore of Egypt land, the mysteries of life and death, and of the world beyond the circle of the sun. Now, in this presentation, didn't we just learn that right now? We're talking about the world beyond the sacred, you know, circle of the sun. We're talking about going up above the almighty stones of throne of Allah. We're talking about going up before what we call the world that we know it as. It states we had finished all the studies of the senior course, and he went into the chamber of the dead that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead. And here he wrought. So if you want to know what our holy prophet demonstrated, not only on the plane of things made manifest on the land, even when he went to sail upon smoother seas, you know, dealing with his senior course, in the chamber of the dead, he's preserving from decay the bodies of the dead, the so-called NBC, Negro, Black, and colored people. There is where he wrought. That's what he's doing. And that's what we supposed to be doing as well when it comes to us. If he did it, we can do it too. And that's the thing. So now that you have learned the true aspects of knowing about the mummification of dead and wrapping your people, in sacred garbs to preserve them in their ignorance, in their sleep, now you have the power to raise them from the dead. So with that being said, Morris Ken, like I said, we had to go this far in time, in order to get this measure out here and give it to you and make it plain, Morris Ken. We had to get that to you. But at this time, we're going to open up the floor. And like I said, we got a little more minutes on the floor because we wanted to make sure that our family can get the draw. So what I'm going to do at this time, I'm going to open up the floor so that we can hear from our family online. And then we'll see what we can do as well when it comes to hearing from our other family as well. So Islam, at this time, we call forth our Moorish kin. And we want to start by calling on, anyone who would like to speak concerning this measure. Star 6 your phone, Moors. Stick to the subject matter.
Islam?
Islam.
Okay, like I'm coming on through the panel. Is that okay? Or should I go through the
Islam.
phone?
That's right. You can speak on the panel. I don't hear no type of I don't hear no background or nothing. You can speak right here, brother.
Okay, gratitude. Rather giving all praises to the good. Well, I gave my praise and honors prior, but I reiterate, praise Allah. In
You know what? It might be better, pardon self, brother. I just thought about it.
Okay,
it might be better for you to speak from the phone, and I just thought about it. They might not be able to hear you because that audio situation I have going on.
Right. Okay.
So yeah. Go ahead and speak from the phone, and I'm gonna put your audio up here. All right, just give a brother a second. He just switching over his apparatus. If you're speaking, we can't hear you yet, Brother Marvin Edwards Bay.
Islam, can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now.
Gratitude. As I was saying, praise Allah. Oh, I'm Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay. Praise Allah and pass on to his prophet. And high honors to you guys, man, for bringing forth the most powerful class. Elevating, the Moors. And I appreciate it. I mean, because you made it so clear. And I can say that because, in my growth and development in this Morris American government and in the life, I can experience this going through these degrees to a degree. You know what I mean? And looking at your pictorial representation, man, it makes one, and I've had these thoughts prior to that when we first started going over these lessons. You know what I mean? To be going through those, tests within in the bottom of that pyramid, man, in the dark of night. Because I know I like to sleep in the dark, but sometimes when you go into that darkness, you can see a whole lot of things. You know what I mean? So you have to really be fortified. You know what I mean? And these teachings that the prophet brought us, it enables us to go through these tests. You know what I mean? It gives us the courage with the sincerity, along with the philosophy, and all of the tests that he went through, and which will allow one to transcend, through these tests, And I'm just so grateful for being in part of this divine and national movement, you know what I mean, to have these teachings within my grasp, man, this ain't nothing to play with. Like you said, yeah, one could go roving mad, you know what I mean, if they weren't rooted in the truth that the prophet brought. And I just say gratitude, God, man. I know there are others want to speak. Gratitude and honor to you. Islam and peace.
And Islam and peace, yeah. And that's why, it's pertinent for our people to understand that the prophet is definitely working from the plane of soul. He up here preserving this body from decay. His grand body, Islam. Is it? I hear somebody there. Come on in here. I know the chamber dark. You hear something, but you ain't gotta be scared. Islam.
Gratitude. Yes, this is Divine Minister Lincoln Morbe. And once again, I rise and give praise to the great God. I'm to our prophet and Buddha Ali. And I'm to our citizens, and I'm to our government and our officials. And I'm to you for this class, this divine class. Praise be to Allah. Well, this is powerful. Because the prophet lets us know that the chamber of the dead, is the committee of sacred school of everlasting life. And this is where, he is on the plane of soul. Like you said, he's still alive. And he's teaching us that we have been given the power of everlasting life to wake up our brothers and our sisters that's living on this plane of death, living on this plane of being NBCs, Negro, Black, and colored people, things that are marks that have been put on us, since during the time of slavery. And we know that by preserving our people, this is where we come into play. Because we are the return of the Ancient One. And being the return of the Ancient One, we have with us the power to elevate and educate our people on our divinity, and this opens up the door. When our prophet was going through these different levels, he was letting us know that we can overcome anything, because we have been given this sacred knowledge. The knowledge that has been kept away from us, as they held us over here in the West, and miseducated us and subjugated us and given us a false education. And, oh boy, this is definitely an eye opener, because he lets us know that you can't kill the spirit. And he lets us know that as long as Allah lives, man cannot die. And we know that that world beyond the human sight, in the land of flesh things, where things are made of thought, hey, we have another work to do. And that work is to become like Yahushua was, because he said that what he has done, all men shall be able to do, and even greater things. So when we look into this, follow the senior course of study, goodness gracious, we find that this wisdom heritage through these teachings that have been given, it's been handed down to us, and we know that the mysteries of life and death and of the world beyond the circle of the sun that, hey, there's a spirit man that came forth from the heart of the great God. And we know we cannot die, because we know that we are the God. And hey, God don't have no beginning. And he don't have no end. And we know that the circle of the sun is the plane of the soul. And that's the universal science where things are made of thought. With brightness so complete that it can only be seen with the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And he lets us know that understanding is the rock upon which man must build himself. And in this seeing course of study, we find ourselves as being conquerors. Because the high open, he is always with us. Wherever, no matter what difficulty we might go through, what change we might come in contact with as we're dealing with the lower self and overcoming the lower self, we're still going to rise and be what the great God has made us to be. So we know who made us, and we know that Allah is the Father of the universe, and we know that we are the love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice made manifest. Praise Allah for you and gratitude for the class, God, man. Islam and peace.
Islam and peace. Yeah, we bringing these measures from, the minds that think along the realm of mythos and the reality. Like we say, we have come out of the theoretical aspect into the application of what these degrees are. And it's truly living your life in a cyclic pattern, so to speak, until you become a master, even beyond this aspect. Why are these degrees necessary? Because they make you a greater and better executive ruler. That's why you have to go through these tests in life. That's why it's necessary. So when you get before your people, you weld and saddled and equipped for the journey along the way. Islam. Well, all right. I hear somebody else, I think, trying to get in there. Islam. Any other more who would like to speak? Man, somebody must have sealed up the doors on this special chamber, man. I thought we let one out and they in a whole nother degree of unfoldment. I thought by now we'll be up in the queen chamber all the way in the king chamber. Islam, is anybody there? Hello? Or am I alone? Islam.
Man.
All right, sister. Yeah, you remember the subject matter?
Clarify it for me, God, man, please. I was just baffled because it was 9:20. I didn't want to mess stuff up.
Yeah.
What was the subject matter, sir?
Yeah, we allotted our people some time. Allah's leading on. Time never
You have
was.
to give me an explanation.
No, I'm finna give you the subject title. ADEPT Chamber of the Dead, The Mysteries of Egypt. Islam, chapter 33. What have you to say about that, sister? How have you been mummified and preserved from your death by the prophet?
How have I been mummified and preserved from my death by the prophet? Well, first, this is Sister Cammy. I'm in Michigan. I rise, honor, and praise the great God Allah. I honor His prophet, Noble Ali, official citizens, Moors here, there, and everywhere, especially my Moors kin. The mummification and the death, we don't die. So that fleshly form, what happens to it, our soul is on the soul plane. So as far as the mummification, prophets taught us we don't die. The topic tonight, as far as the prophet and the ADEPT Chamber of the Dead, I think that when you go through a process of testing this will be near the end of the test. When you get to the death part, as far as the flesh, death in the flesh on earth, the mummification process, all that there is teaching them how to prepare the fleshly form for death, for human death. And the spiritual death, we don't die. And we reincarnate. We practice that in Moorish, the Moorish beliefs. Gratitude.
Well, at least I know you know who your friend is. Islam. We give honors to you for that drawing, sister. All right. Are there any other Moors?
Islam.
Islam, family.
Islam, family.
I thought I was in that
Class.
chamber by myself earlier. Goodness gracious.
Wow, yeah. Man, class, this is assistant national grand chief, Papa class. This is Sean Washington, Elmo Tucker. Raw Bayo from the Michigan Territory. All right. Give all praise to the great God Allah. I give all honors to this big class government for an apartment, leaving the doors on, the lights on. I give all honors to the big class Moorish government flag. I give all honors to Marcus Garvey. I give all honors to the Book of Fire, 101s, 102s, the Hadith, the Holy Quran. I give all honors to all my Moorish Kennels class tonight. Wow. Let me see. That Chambers. Could you repeat that? I know it's the DAP Chambers. Could you repeat the rest of it though?
Yes, the chapter is chapter 33, my brother. The ADEPT Chamber of the Dead. The Mysteries of Egypt.
Okay, Mysteries of Egypt. Okay. Wow, our people, we got buried so low by these Masons. You know, I was buried one time. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know I was in a cellar grave. I was a Negro, black, colored, and I was looking for, a way out, until I came into this theocratic Moorish government, the most powerful government in the world, with Justin L. Bay. These Masons, they put us in a deep, a shallow grave. They hit us right in our head. When the Moors, our ancestors, when we went to sleep, 1700s, and they took everything from us. We got enslaved over here. They took our nationality. They took our land. Gave us the Bible. The Europeans. When they came over here, they was Quakers, Pilgrims. Gave us the weapons. And they destroyed our people. No, my fault. They didn't give us the weapons. They came over here with their weapons. My fault. They slaughtered our people. They took everything from us. Gave us their Christianity. And today our people they still can't comprehend. They still can't get it. Cause it's like you say it's foreign to them. I gotta keep it moving. So I'm out shallow grave. I'm not going back in there. They said man can't die. Once supposedly your soul plane, your flesh is gone. You're not in the flesh no more. You really is in the spirit. The spirit leave your body. And our people still out here just calling themselves brands with the slaveholder put on. That's putting you right back in the shallow grave. Just putting you going into the tomb. We got to come on to this government. We got to declare our free national standard. Get out the shallow grave. Our brothers and sisters above Mexico and these Americas. I found this home, the government. I'm like, wow. I was out here searching. And I was still, you're still in the shallow grave because we going through all these degrees of school of thought. And I found my home. I'm not leaving this government. I don't want to go back in the shallow grave no more.
you know, can't do it. Can't go down that alley no more. You know, peace and love, gratitude, Islam.
Peace and love. Gratitude in Islam. Well, you ain't got to worry about no Masons up here in this ADEPT chamber of the dead. You know, dealing with the mission of Egypt. You know, give me a second, brother. So you ain't got to worry about no Masons up here in this ADEPT chamber of the dead. You know, because we dealing with the missions of Egypt. And so what we done learned, you know, that our holy prophet again has been preserving our body from decay, whether we know it or not, because he can teach our spiritual body while we here acting crazy in this physical body. And if we listen, we can get it right. You see, so he preserving us from decay so that we can do something for each other. You know, the bodies of the dead, so-called Negro, black, and colored people. Islam. All right, brother Justice, you got it.
It's praise Allah, honor to, I won't be long. Praise Allah, honor to our holy prophet, Noble Durali, Dr. of Ajor territory, and honor to you, National Sister Grand Sheik Sir, for the great class night. Honor to all those officials in the class, honor to the entire Act One. As always, special honor to our National Grand Sheik and our National Grand Champion, Morris America, are empowered to make law and enforce law with the system of the prophet and the grand body of Morris America. And honor to our host tonight, our National Sister Grand Sheik, the Sister Grand Sheik is to the Sister Grand Sheik, and all affairs to live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it is known before the citizens of Morris America. Well, you know, the prophet did say, I brought you everything safe to save the nation. I take and say that self. He said, if I get you to thinking, you'll say yourself. And I'll be quick, so due to time. The ADEPT chamber of the death, the mystery of Egypt. You know, I would just start here is, who made you? And, you know, you was talking about the biggest job. You know, one of our biggest jobs is fixing ourselves, continue to fix ourselves, learn to be God's again. And you're right, make us better and greater leaders, because there's no room for ignorance and immaturity or foolishness in being a God, because our people is looking for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. They're looking for the everlasting living, which they cannot quite understand now. But coming home to the Morris American government, we prepared to aid and assist our people. They were to learn, as we are learning to be God's again. And to be a strong leader, you know, we have to. This is why, you know, it's in our Constitution. You were talking about preserve, but then, you know, we have to proclaim and practice these holy and divine laws and take them and be very sincere about it, keep them above our neck. This is what we're going to preserve them. Because when you're talking about preserving that, and this is what happened, getting you out of that dead state, preserving this body to be able to get these laws and lessons and clean out all that knot above your neck. See, this is preserved, because you can't teach anyone anything if you don't have anything up there. You don't know who made you. You don't know you have a holy prophet. You don't know you have a flag. You don't know you have a land to put the flag in. You don't even know that this is your home. But once you begin to understand this is and with me is, who made you? Allah, the great God of the universe, the one that set the holy prophet over you all for your earthly salvation. Get to work. Do the job. Obey the law. Continue to work on yourself. Continue to fix yourself. We need leaders. Because the prophet said, I need good, faithful more. And as I told many people, I work at it hard. I try hard so that I can do it. I don't look for any excuses. I don't make up any excuses. If I'm short on something, I have literature. If I don't recall something, I have the literature. But I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing, because I'm trying to be a more better and more divine, one who truly loves his people, one who will not lie to his people, one who will go to in and every edge to get the truth out there. Even if I have to pick up the phone to call one or either tap one on the shoulder. This is what has happened to so many of great Moors. I'm going to call them great Moors that turned their back on the prophet, because they refuse to ask the chief, the chairman, or any other official that one of the questions that can keep you here. But if you're not being sincere, practicing, proclaiming, and preserving the holy and divine laws, clean yourself up and clean yourself out, then there's no need. There's no need. Maybe the next time. But we have a job to do, and we have to keep it moving. Because it's real clear. It is in the nature of self to be God. Learn to steer your thoughts and be yourself God. And you can't do that when you're so concerned about where you get caught up. You get caught up, and I'm just saying as it goes, you get caught up. Let the Lord self cause confusion and allow you to believe there's something greater than what you have here. This will stop us from practicing, proclaiming, stop us preserving these holy and divine temples what we have for temporary. We can't even fix them if we don't be sincere about these holy and divine laws with our holy prophet Noble Drew Ali out front. At the end of it, says real simple. Who made you? Islam and honesty for the class.
Islam, the same one that made you, is the same one that preserved you. Islam from decay. If you know how to think, you got to be wrapped in divine thoughts and get rid of that naught and be the ought. So we just say gratitude. Islamism without the schism. Lord lean on victory sure. What we're going to do, we're going to close this demonstration out at this particular time and open up for our officials. And in closing, because time never was, and like we told our Moorish kin from the beginning, we were demonstrating what we demonstrated. We were going to need a little time, Moorish kin. So what I'm going to do, is like I said, I want to close out with the words of my chairman. I got time for that right there. I ain't too much in no rush. I ain't got nowhere to be. I don't know about nobody else. But once I read this, I'm going to open up for my officials. And it's a drawing that he placed here that the world need to see. So that's why I'm going into this particular area, because it's very important that we see this and then we understand why it's necessary that we pass the senior course just like our prophet did. So if you got patience, all is well. If you don't, then handle your business. But let me share this screen right here. All right, there we go. And this is coming from the opening of the Egyptian Adept Rifle Self-Initiation. And this was our chairman speaking on in his commentary, Ali passing the 7th Adept degree and becoming the last prophet. And he went through the Adept keys to the journey of circumnavigation within, and the Adept chamber of the dead, dealing with the temple of perfected man, the mysteries of Egypt, the spirit nucleus in the God consciousness unknown by carnal man. Listen, the senior course of study, the earlier courses, e.g. sincerity, justice, faith, philanthropy, heroism, and divine love, now successfully passed by Ali, were angelic prepared classes of purification necessitated in order for him to obtain the following 7th and highest adept degree. The matriculation of the first 6 adept degrees guided Ali solely by the hands of Allah, thus building a firm rock of understanding he needed to save his people from the wrath of Allah. Now he must complete the course to become the master answer to 400 years of countless prayers sent by his people. See how his degrees prepared him for his true unfoldment? This senior course of study is now open up, and Ali became a personal pupil of the Hierophant. The Hierophant epitomizes the highest order of love, God that will appear in human form. A Hierophant is the adept interpreter with the wisdom of science to teach the mysterious manifestations and sacred doctrines of the truth that God in man is truly a fact known as life. The Hierophatic transliterations of the divine evolution, spirit man to Allah, is the sacred course of man perfecting himself as love divine. This is why the purifications of Ali, a young adept master, must go through the sores of his soul by mastering the toils of what life is truly spent to build. Here in the mystic lodge and chamber of the adepts, Ali the student has gone before the bar 6 times and had become a conqueror of each degree. The lessons Ali learned had prepared him to appear before the hierophant, the purity of love in man. Ali learned the secrets of the mystic lore, meaning wisdom, heritage teachings, historical knowledge, and experience teachings of genealogy, hand down truth through generations of Egypt land, the capital of the Dominion of Africa. The ancient Comedians were the world's first or foremost teachers, scientists, builders, and original experts of agriculture, metaphysics, educators of God and man as one. Ali also learned the mysteries of life and death and of the world beyond the circle of the sun. Spirit man came forth from the heart of the great God and cannot die. He is God and has no beginning and no end. The circle of the sun is the plane of soul, universal science where things are made of thought and with brightness so complete it can only be seen with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. When Allah had finished all the studies of the senior course, he went into the chamber of the dead. The chamber of the dead is the Comedian sacred school of everlasting life, where a student learns the friendly purpose of the death angel and the force of infinite wisdom from the heart of man. In this chamber, a student learns the boundlessness of the God self and how the lower self is limited by the actions of the soul, that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead. Mummification is another Comedian art of preservation of a body well used. Once the spirit and soul have no more use for the mundane life. Preserving dead bodies for the memorial is the foundation for today's human monuments, statues, and works of art. And here, Ali wrote, the master student elevated his thoughts and adjusted his mindset to rely upon the 6 conquests of the adept classes. His heart and mind became fixed on the mission at hand. That being said, Islamism without the schism. And now we will call on our officials, starting with our sister, Alceta Moonel. Islam, you there, sister? Well, all right, we know the sister's about our father's business. Well, let us call on our national mufti, Dr. Khonshu Mahat Hebrew Bey. Islam, you there, grand man?
Islam.
Islamism without the schism.
Okay, that's our religion. Allahism and Allahism. Islamism. Gratitude for calling us forth. Grand man, we rise, giving our thanksgiving, adoration, worship, and praise to our Father God Allah. We give the highest honors to his prophet, our prophet, the last prophet of these days and times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the savior of humanity. We give honor to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honor to his government. Our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live. We give honor to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers, Swift angels, mufti, our royal council and secretaries. We give honor to our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honor to our flag and our divine constitution and bylaw, our Holy Quran, Grand National Seal, Grand National Emblem, our Book of Pride, the Exhuman of a Nation. We give honor to everything that is Moorish. We give a special high honor to you, National Sister Grand Sheik, for the Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us and to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, angels. We continue to give the honors where they're due and honoring all true and divine prophets. And we give honors to our ancestors that have come before us, leading the way. We are there today without doubt or contradiction because no one has the power to change man from his descent nature. Praise Allah for that. And a little time, we're going to make it brief, but it's been a grand class, and we look at this ministry of death. The aspect I was looking at is, as you say, in the preservation is one, looking at the purpose of the ministry of having that grand measure to be able to draw from and, as they call it, testimony or whatever, to demonstrate to one when you're given a measure. I look at it as also as the ministry and death happening to do with the step of the knowledge. Like if one ever has had what they call near-death experience or a time when you could almost die, and then one asked the self-question, or, I almost died, why did God keep me alive? Why am I still alive when I had this opportunity when I was for sure about to lead this demonstration? And I look at that as also the ministry of death, the revelation for one, and understanding that Allah the great God has his hand on you in your life. And take one to that point where, there's one or two outcomes. Either you're going to live through it or you're not. One is it gains strength. One also, like I said, has gained a connection to the Creator and realizing that, one, your life is not in your control per se, because at any time Allah can call you forth, and actually truly internalizing that thought pattern, and also having the question, well, why am I here? Why has Allah kept me around? And when one starts to ask that question and look at the gifts and talents and the experience that Allah has given to one, then it tends to lead us to a ministry where we're expressing to others not only the grace of God, the blessings of God, but also the unity with God, and understanding that one's life is not separate from the divine life. One is not separate from the universal Creator, that everything is working together according to law, because law governs all events. So gratitude for this class this evening, and gratitude to you, Moorish America, for being here with us, giving us your time and tender respect. We love you. Islam and peace.
And gratitude and Islam and peace. Yes, sir. Once we're able to internalize, these different trials that we go through, and we realize that this is what life is truly spent to build in perfection, then we can truly become masters, of our minds and masters of our conditions and our reality. That's the measure that we're driving home tonight. This ADEPT chamber is something real, and we take it with us everywhere we go. And like I say, we meet these degrees in people, and we meet these degrees in circumstances. And that's how it will be, as long as we are going through the cycle of life until we become that enlightened Buddha, and all the mysteries are, revealed. So we give honors to you, Mufti, for that drawing, and peace and love for that thought. We definitely more in that chord to that demonstration. Islamism without the schism. But let us call forth our Grand National Secretary of the State, Sister Hatshepsut Rakat Ma'at and Pooh, Tutankhamun Bay. Islam, you there, Goddess and Queen?
Closest I thought. Can you hear me more?
Man, I'm glad you had your phone muted. Islam, Grand Secretary of the State. We love you.
Islam. We love you all as well. Gratitude. Islam Moorish kin. First of all, I want to rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet Noble Jura Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our official staff, the angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish kin. Giving honor to all those Moors that spoke before me, all those Moors that will speak after me. We want to give honor to this Grand Moorish Perspectives class this evening. To you, Dr. Shahid, for opening our meeting according to law, and also hosting this most powerful Moorish perspectives class this evening. Giving honor to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for taking registration, reading our subject chapter for the week. Subject matter: when he had finished all the studies of the senior course, he went into the chamber of the dead that he might learn the ancient methods of preserving from decay the bodies of the dead and secure these bodies. And, just briefly, Dr. Shahid, this has been such a powerful lesson, because when you're speaking about being able to transcend the carnal senses and recognizing the necessity for fasting from the pleasures on the plane of things made manifest. And if we don't make it a daily practice to contemplate and meditate and get used to traveling on the soul plane, get used to using that as a vehicle to contemplate, meditate, go into these studies and recognize the various tests and lessons that we have to unfold into, then, when we do transition, we're sit there being scrambled, as opposed to remembering the lessons that we have learned. That's why we got to go through the cycle of birth, death, rebirth, until we master all of our lessons. And so this is a very powerful thing, because too often when you focus just on a manifest level, you tend to forget about that. Every day we have choices and options as to whether we're going to do the art or the not. Forgetting about that we have to answer for every thought, word, and deed. And so it would behoove us, if we are learning our lessons well, to focus on those things that are uplifting, those things that are building, those things that are pure and dealing with divine love, so that we can learn all of our tests, in preparation for not only going through the senior course, but also, being the representative of law on this plane, and also other planes as the law would have it. So gratitude more for this powerful class. Much peace and love to all of our Moorish kin. Islam.
In Islam, and gratitude to you as well, Grand National Secretary of State, for your measure brought forth from Allah's treasures, Islam. Well, all right, speaking of Allah's treasures and measures being brought forth, man, let me call forth my Grand National Chairman, Dr. Hacken Acting Pert M. Here Root to come and bay up in here. Islam, you there, Grand Man?
Did you call me?
Man, I've been calling man from eternity for you. Islam.
I had the phone open, but I didn't start 60.
Islam.
Woo. Man, I give praise to Allah on to the last part of these days and times. That's our noble dwelling, the one that brought us everything that it takes to save a nation. Including our own government, divine constitution, our prayer, holy covenant, holy Quran. He brought everything. And more, we are now have our own free national name. And what more can you ask for? Why? Because you done went through slavery and everything that what the witch had to bestow upon us, and we're still here. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for divinity. You would not be here if it wasn't for the great God that wanted you here. If your forefather had not ordained you to be here, you wouldn't be here. So it's an honor and a blessing. It's a powerful class for us. Islam is without a schism. Peace and blessings. Thank you.
Islamism without the schism. Peace and blessings indeed, Chairman. And you couldn't say it better. Yeah, after coming through slavery, that was one of the degrees to come through too. Our people just don't know it. That's why a lot of them still laying around in that coffin, with a casket plant above the head, and don't know where the land came from. But we say praise be to Allah and gratitude to the tribe of endurance for your contributions, to uplift our people, all those who want to be uplifted. You can't get the senior course here. You ain't going to get it nowhere. I don't care what Roman school you go to. But let us speak, and call forth, through Hector, our national grand sheik. And we know he got some mighty words of power to bring forth to our Moorish kin. Islam concerning preserving from this grand body, preserving it from decay. Islam, you there, sheik?
Islam.
Islamism.
We truly give you honor for this very, very enriching lesson, especially dealing with the soul compartment of ourselves as a people, as well as individuals. The God aspect of our being manifested in this flesh is brought in on the consignment as one who has been brought here long before we did, was prepared us for the duties and structures and the things that Allah has put in ourselves to manifest here while we are on earth. And so this is a very, very powerful presentation, and it's something that shouldn't be taken light in light of today's situation and the way other tribes, nations on the earth land is fastly coming into the fact that they're getting ready to get destroyed because they're not in accord with the makers do wishes. But we here, the Moorish Americans, we've been given that opportunity, that chance, and that giving us the lesson to be the blessing and not the curse. And so, Shahi, we surely appreciate the lessons that you give out. And this lesson here is a very powerful presentation because it gives us insight aspect of our being as a people and as individuals. But to come find out, we're not not tied in to the missions that we're on. We're tied into each other. And we just take the time, as you explained in the presentation, for us to cross over the borderline at will and become that essence of which Allah has created us for. And we truly are blessed to bear witness to the wonders of His love. And we say thank you, Father God Allah, for blessing us with your love. Islam, Islam, Islam.
In Islamism, Sheikh, we love you. Allah is leading on and victory is sure. January 15, 1929. A warning from the Prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work in their homes on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the Prophet or violate the covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws laid down to them by their Prophet. If they lose confidence in their Prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the Prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the Prophet and Noble Drew Ali. And if the Prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By order of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we bring forth this divine decree. Chapter 25, a holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Ye are the children of one father provided for by his care, and the breasts of one mother have given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all, and your love to each other. Moorish movement, divine movement, everlasting movement. Go in peace, masters. We love you.
Peace and blessings, Mo. See you mañana.
Great plan, great plan.
Peace and love. Peace and love. Peace and love. Yeah, peace and love.
Peace and love to all of y'all, Moors. We love you with love and divinity. You know, and want to give honors to all of our family who checked in on social media as well. Noble Brian L., Charles Boyle, and even Anthravian Holman Sr., Karma Ott, Swindle Hoodwink. We know who he is. You feel me? Who that is? Marquise. And who else that is? The brother, Jehudi Bay. And Dwayne Britt. Contact your Moorish American government. We got enough work for all our Moorish kin to do. Tyrese Bay. And that's at MoorishAmericanGovernment.land. And you can find headquarters number right there at the bottom. Islamism without the schism. We love your family. Y'all take it easy, and we'll see y'all in Sunday school class tomorrow. We got a storm coming. Islam. Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Goodbye.